All right, welcome back to Jeff Kanenge Live. We've fixed the fire extinguisher. The guests are ready. Dr. PLO Lumumba and Barack Maluka in the house. But first, Monica, let's take a look at these numbers. The question we've been asking all evening. Should President Uhuru Kenyatta reach out to the opposition in any way, shape, or form? 48% of you say yes. 52% of you say no. Keep sending your answers. SMS number 22422. You can tweet us at Koinange Jeff and at Barack M. Gentlemen, let me go to you, Dr. PLO Lumumba.
No, you can't go back there.
Oh, was he the last one?
After we have been brought under such a verbal
tirade,
torrent of verbal assault and malignancy, we must...
you must rebut.
Okay. We must respond.
Okay.
We have been accused of, among other things, being entertainers and finding... And everybody knows
and being gymnasts.
PLO is a gymnast and a legal entertainer, and that during that supreme process that he's talking about, he in fact featured for purposes of providing some entertainment and comic relief. Beyond that, there was nothing that was achieved. And it is very well known that that which he says we lost, NASA lost, was not lost, because the Supreme Court in its wide-ranging wisdom decided otherwise, that the person who was alleged to have won had not won. Because if the process is flawed, if it is rife with illegalities and irregularities, it doesn't matter how many numbers, what kinds of numbers you parade. And PLO here, who is my good friend and my good father, although he maligns me since he became a jubilite, but he remains my friend and my brother. He's very well aware that the Supreme Court itself was brought under assault. I wouldn't doubt that he's been doing a bit of tutelage, not so far next door, down Dennis Pritt Road, and turn to the left and you are there. He's been giving a bit of tutelage there. And you saw how this narrative of Maraga na wakora wake started gaining traction left, right, and center. We saw that at some point this court was not able to assemble when Kenyans were expecting that it would assemble on the 25th. Up to now, we have not been told what happened. And I know that he's going to come up with some of those words of his suamoto,
yeah.
And that sort of thing that the court cannot tell us why it did not sit unless Okoiti Omtata goes there. We saw how none other than Chebukati himself, a couple of days to the so-called 26th October election, came out and he said, I cannot promise you that there's going to be a free and fair election. We saw how after being summoned to the corridors of power, he came out trembling like a leaf, and announcing to the world that now he was very sure he was going to give Kenyans a free and fair election. We know for sure David Kenani Maraga, if he's watching somewhere now, he must know in his heart of hearts, in the innermost recesses of his hearts, that they were threatened. He even came and said, we are being threatened. Now, in that kind of context, you cannot talk about things like the dust of the Lord. Dust is dead. That is why when people die, they are told, man, you are dust, and we take you back to dust. So if you are talking about something like the dust of law, you are talking about dead things.
Let me I'll not go into that trajectory because I want to give some life to the debate and something that will help us in this regard.
Thank you.
The truth of the matter is that we now have a president and a deputy president of the Republic of Kenya who are duly elected in accordance with the law. And that law is law that we gave unto ourselves in the year 2010 and the laws made thereunder. The question therefore is that going forward, how do these individuals who have been constituted as the president and the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya, how will they use the powers that were bestowed upon them to work in a direction that will be useful to the people of the Republic of Kenya. One can always debate, and this is the kind of thing that you don't want to evangelize, because it's unlikely that we are going to convert individuals who have taken a position. But my view is that President Kenyatta, who is now the President of the Republic of Kenya, in accordance with the law, must do certain things that will ensure that he embraces all individuals, those who voted him and those who did not vote him. And we only have to look at recent elections in Africa. We have seen protestations in Africa, in Zambia. We saw protestations in Mozambique. We saw that in Angola. We saw that in Gabon. We saw that in Tanzania. We saw that in Southern Sudan. It would appear that in Africa there is this proclivity on the part of those who lose the election to say that the elections have been stolen. And that is a debate that can never be exhausted. What we want to deal with is that those who are legally constituted and instituted have an obligation that is larger. You remember, if you allow me a little latitude, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, did not even win the popular vote, but won the Electoral College. And very graciously, Lady Clinton said, I have lost the elections and the country is bigger than I. There were questions as to certain aspects of the election. There was ordered a recount in the state of Wisconsin, and that recount kept the matter and everybody moved on. The question that we must therefore ask of the nation and the leaders, and I see the question that you posed to the people of Kenya, and President Kenyatta in his inaugural address yesterday said, I've already started reaching out, and I would encourage him to reach out to Mr. Raila Odinga and tell him, brother, beyond our ephemeral ambitions, there is something that is inexorable. Kenya and her people. How can we reason together as a people and do that which is in the best interest of the people of Kenya? And as the person who now has the instruments of power, he has a greater duty. And now that the hand is outstretched, the wisdom of the occasion and the gods of history demand of Mr. Raila Odinga that he reciprocates. The people of Umofia that he keeps on talking about say, never refuse a call for a meeting.
But you can refuse.
It is that which is said at the meeting that you may refuse, but attend the meeting.
Barack, do you agree? Because the olive branch has been extended, if you will.
You know, you can't take my olive tree and then pluck off a branch and tell me I'm extending this olive branch to you. As he has said, there's no need for us to evangelize because we are not going to have any converts because PLO got converted quite a while back, and sorry, I'll not go back there. You know, he must remain my brother. We have been brothers and friends.
I'll take that tongue in cheek. I remain non-aligned and positively neutral.
No, there's no positive neutrality here. That is
the problem with the Nazarites. You're either with us or you are against us. That is the problem.
That is a mere formation of words. It's just high-sounding nothing, and just a mere bubble.
So you disagree? No reaching out.
Who are you going to reach out to? First of all, President Kenyatta has been telling us that the problem in this country is one individual called Raila Odinga. And when this one individual, Raila Odinga, therefore tells people don't turn out to vote, stay at home, a whole 80% of the country stays at home. Who is he going to reach out to?
It wasn't 80%, though, according to the numbers. It wasn't 80%.
Okay, take the ones you want. What would you like?
But threats and intimidation. Let's not forget that there were threats and intimidation.
Threats and intimidation started the very same day the Supreme Court made its ruling. And the threats and intimidations started somewhere near Bama Market, where people who sit in high places, looking like I don't know what had happened to them.
But I want Barack to speak to the outrage.
Yes.
No, you are not the umpire. The umpire is here.
But I did ask you.
And unless you want to we can switch places, then I'll know who I'm dealing with.
Deal with both of us.
Yeah? So, the threats and intimidations began the day people were being told to tawanyorosha. Does that amount into a threat? Does it amount into an intimidation?
Yep.
The threats and intimidations began the moment we started seeing those truckloads of heavily armed policemen getting into selected parts of this country, clearly profiled. The threats and intimidations began the moment we started seeing little kids of 6 months being killed, being told, therefore, that we are going to stop at nothing. You see, it is also good to take this pious, holier-than-thou, jubilate stand and say that there were threats and intimidations and see only one side. We must see that there are those who exercise power, who are privileged to exercise power, and who have now been falling over themselves in praise of the Supreme Court. So when you talk about reaching out to NASA, you have got to reach out to the villagers in Emanyudia, in Ebshivungo, in Ikolomani, to make them start feeling like they are part of it. Right?
Okay.
Kenyatta does not have to go through Raila Odinga for him to start saying that now I'm reaching out to Kenyans. There are Kenyans in Taita Taveta who are feeling that they don't belong. Why are Kenyans in Kwale, in Malindi feeling that they don't belong? Kenyans in Turkana feeling that they don't belong. How is he going to reach out to them?
Okay, but Barack, let's face it, and you guys are well read, so the old saying, all is fair in love and war. That's the old saying.
It
and
is
if it was
a cliche.
If it was a football match, before the game begins, there's a lot of intimidation back and forth. There's a lot of heckling from the fans. Yes. There's all that up until you play that game.
Because in the end, we go back home after football, whether we have lost or won, and we recover. And I have heard people saying in this country that politics, elections will come and go, and that Kenya stays on. Mzee Moi used to tell us that siasa ni maisha, siasa mbaya, maisha mabaya. You cannot tell us that elections come and go. When we talk about that which we call democracy, democracy is not that day when we cast the vote and the vote is counted. That vote is just a culmination of other things that have been happening to us for a very long time. When we get to that moment, it's only a moment of validation. And it's validation of how you have been ruling. And maybe that's why you're saying now, let him reach out. We could give him the benefit.
I want to be more realistic.
Go on.
Whether we like it or not, in accordance with the Kenyan Constitution as it stands today, in accordance with the law of Kenya as it stands today, in terms of international relationship as it stands today, the recognized government of the Republic of Kenya is headed by one Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. And for that reason, one may argue until the cows come home, but that is the constitutionally existing government of the Republic of Kenya. That is the government that collects taxes. That is the government that executes international instruments on behalf of the Republic of Kenya. That is the government that was instituted by the judiciary, headed by the Supreme Court President and the Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya. And what we are saying, that finding ourselves in such a scenario, in order to move the country forward, it is incumbent upon that government to begin a process of ensuring that the nation is brought together. And we are on rapport in agreeing that there is a sense in which a section of the Republic of Kenya feels left out. And what we are saying, even the word significant, we may qualify it we may qualify it whichever way, but there is a sense in which there is a need to do that. And I'm saying that it is incumbent upon those who are in leadership to ask of President Uhuru Kenyatta to go to the people in the village in Emanyulia is very romantic. But we know that people express themselves through their leaders. And the leader of the opposition as we know it today, whether you talk about principles, is Raila Amolo Odinga. That is the person that you want to engage. The others will fall in place. They may shout here and there, but the truth is that in the pecking order of the opposition, the first amongst equals is Raila Amolo Odinga. And that is the one you want to engage, yes, for purposes of moving the country forward.
And if he refuses to engage Barack, then what happens? Is it more demonstrations? Is it more civil action? Is it more of this of the usual?
If he refuses to engage, then we wait and see.
But that is very defeatist. For a friend of mine whom I love and respect, we cannot wait and see. We have had example of countries that have been in similar situation, whether it's the Democratic Republic of Congo or whichever country. We are in a much happier position that thus far the opposition, even in their most disdained activities, have tried to ensure that they are walking on the path of the law. And to that, they must be credited. There is a sense in which at all times the opposition has tried to be wayfarers in the avenue of the law. And what one is saying is that we find ourselves in a situation as a country where there is need for what one may call political rapprochement. And I'm saying that this is the time. And I'm saying President Kenyatta has extended his hand. The former Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga has a historical duty. He has a legacy. He has contributed monumentally in many ways in this country. And we are saying that for his own legacy and for love of country and patriotism, he owes it to this country to have a brotherly meeting with Uhuru Kenyatta. That is all I'm saying.
The country cannot just be loved by Raila Amolo Odinga. The country must be loved by all of us. Those who've been killing children. Yesterday, a 7-year-old was killed, and they don't say anything about it. Those who have been responsible for the murder and mayhem of those that they would consider in their thinking to be the children of lesser parents and lesser gods, they need to begin by even just apologizing and appreciating that somebody has been killed. This happy-go-lucky spraying of bullets everywhere. And when I hear this kind of philosophical inclination from a brother whom I have seen grow up and whom I love very much, and we grew up in the same neighborhood.
See the love that is oozing between us.
Yes. And you can see some of that love is oozing.
Is what I want extended to the country.
Between us. Turning a blind eye to some of these things, my heart really bleeds.
No, but I must stop Barack there. There is no sense in which I'm turning a blind eye to this. In our earlier conversation, we are very clear that things have happened in this country that ought not to have happened. We have seen in countries where people, in Rwanda, people died in the millions.
Right.
We have seen people die in Biafra in the millions. We are saying that that is regrettable. But before we go in that direction, is there not wisdom in us coming to the table? And one of the unique things that I now am happy about, in fact, when I look at NASA, I'm a little happier because I know that an individual whom I respect and love is now at a table where he can talk to the people there. That is my conviction. So I would want my brother and my friend here, when he goes on the other side, to say, it has been unfortunate, but all war ends with a negotiation. Before we go into war, he tells Musalia Mudavadi, I'm going to mention them by name because he's the Secretary General of ANC.
Correct.
He tells Musalia Mudavadi, he tells Raila Amolo Odinga, he tells my good friend Moses Masika Wetangula, he tells Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, it has been unfortunate, but there is a wisdom in us sitting together as a people and reasoning together, not because we are the ones who are being negotiated with, but for the moment we are the individuals who have projected ourselves as representing millions of Kenyans. That is all I ask. I ask for no more.
Two very quick things, Jeff. The first thing is that we have not projected ourselves as leaders. We are indeed the leaders. So,
all the more reason.
Absolutely.
So this kind of semantics that casts aspersions even on the leadership.
I withdraw the word projected. You have been thrust into leadership.
You are.
And therefore you are the leaders.
You're in the mix.
Which lends greater weight to my argument.
Very good, very good. So we take the gravity. We go back to yesterday. Then we come back to today. Yesterday, Mr. Kenyatta was saying that let us forget about historical grievances. Today you are saying let us reach out to the other side. How are you going to reach out to the other side when you are saying that let us bury history? We can only move forward after we have addressed historical questions. We are being told we find ourselves in a difficult situation, almost as if some deus ex machina has driven us and brought us into that situation, into that context. Has it not had its agency? Has it not had its perpetration? Has it not had ownership? Can we not ask these questions and say that we are going to address historical injustices? Because that chapter on historical injustices has refused to end. In this election season alone, I think we have expanded it with about another 200 lives lost. And you're saying, let us forget about grievances, let us move forward. There cannot be forward movement without addressing where you have come from, without addressing historical injustices. I think the kind of dialogue that the Jubilites who now enjoy, and very soon they'll be gloating again, telling us that tunakula mukimeza mate, that they crave, can only happen in a context where we agree that we are going to address where we have been, and therefore how we have gotten where we are and how we can move forward.
But Jeff, is that not why wisdom not only requires but demands that you have a session at which all these things are raised, and that must be to respond to the olive branch that has been extended by President Kenyatta, so that you sit at a table and you say, in order to go forward and in the best interest of the nation, there are certain things which have to be addressed in the context of what has happened and what we dealt with. There is a Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission report which was here, that all those things ought to be dealt with, so that we don't only deal with the now, but we deal with situations that will be in the best interests of this generation and generations yet to be born. So what I want to hear is that I have no objection to reciprocating the hand that has been extended. Then the agenda will be determined at that meeting, so that the first business is what is the agenda of this engagement. That is all what one is saying. But to say that we do not recognize, to say that we are not going to engage, to say that the other side is incapable of changing, to say that the other side is irredeemably on the other side and has crossed the Rubicon and burnt their boots, in a manner of speaking, is not to understand what the nation needs. If you take the pulse of the nation today, across the country, their desire
depends on which pulse you are taking.
Across the nation, every Kenyan desires peace.
Yes.
Every Kenyan desires justice. Every Kenyan desires a job. Every Kenyan desires an environment where they'll conduct business. Every Kenyan expects their leaders to lead them in that direction. And I think I speak for my rural village in Imbo. I speak for his rural village in Memanyulia. I speak for Kirinyaga. I speak for Ukambani. I speak for every country. I have taken the pulse of the country.
Gentlemen, there's a message here from Silas. He's one of the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga's PAs, right? Just send me a message. He says, Mr. Odinga has never been averse to dialogue.
That is very good for Silas Jaka Kimba.
There you go.
Who is also my very good friend.
Thank you. He goes on to say, Mr. Odinga remains open to any form of dialogue whose prism width and breadth would prime on the matter of electoral justice. As to whether this can be scaled down to dialogue on moving the country forward without that key issue tackled, NASA, through PM Odinga, remains the man to watch, to engage. Barack.
You see, it's actually very hypocritical for people to be saying today they want dialogue when they were being told as recently as a few weeks ago that let us sit down, let us look at the electoral system, let us look at that which went wrong on the 8th of August, let us look for an opportunity to correct it, and let us go to an election which all of us can accept the outcome thereof. It was an invitation to dialogue. And some people arrogantly said, we don't want dialogue with Mugoroki. Now suddenly, you are there, you have taken the tree, you cut off a twig and say, we are extending an olive branch. So be it. Jakakimba says Raila Odinga is open to dialogue. But this dialogue, you must set the stage and agree what this dialogue is going to be about. While they were on the campaign trail, they kept saying there will be no nusumkate. And nobody wants anybody's nusumkate, not even a slice of that bread. Nobody wants it. One just wants to know that the mkate is actually yours. It belongs to you. And therefore you can eat it. We'll stretch out our hand and shake your hand and say, yes, brother, you've done well, you have won, carry on. At the same time, as we are hearing people saying that let Kenyatta reach out to Odinga, we are still hearing some people within that same Jubilee fraternity shouting from rooftops, saying there will be no dialogue. They have got to decide.
And the same thing with NASA.
They have got
on the same thing with NASA, because the opposite would be Jubilee just ignores everything and goes ahead with their so-called agenda and vision.
Yes.
And that would...
yes, and then we see how far.
But Jeff,
we see how far they can go with that.
Jeff, I have a problem, and it's a problem that I've shared with Barack many times. This idea of equating our country with consumable items such as bread, antelopes, is one that we must run away from. This country is a motherland to be loved and to be preserved. And I hear my good friend Silas Jakakimba very well. And if that is what former Prime Minister Raila Odinga stands for, and I've heard him several times saying that, that is to be praised and lauded.
Yeah.
On both sides of the political divide, there'll always be a few fifth columnists who will want to do that which is wrong and that which is not in the best interest of the country because they are victims of political myopia. What I'm saying,
what is that?
Short-sightedness. Short-sightedness.
Yes.
If you did not understand myopia, but you did, I know. You just wanted me to break it down. Yes. My own view, therefore, is that going forward, it is the more moderate people from both sides of the political divide that we must listen to. Both sides of the political divide have engaged in transgressions which are not in the best interest of the nation. Going forward, we must identify what will take Kenya forward, and that requires, among other things, to recognize that there is a credible opposition in this country which operates under a political formation called NASA. Yeah. And that they have raised certain valid issues. I myself last week wrote to the President Kenyatta raising these issues.
You didn't
I didn't include you because you had been Nasserized.
No, because you belong to the president's corner. Just say it. Just say it, man.
Okay, another debate.
Yes.
But the gist of my argument is that although you have a mandate which is legal, there is a sense in which you must take deliberate effort to ensure that the people in rural Nyanza, the people in Turkana feel that they belong to a country called Kenya.
Yes.
And what we are saying, that all these things can be done through deliberate effort. And when I listened to President Kenyatta yesterday, and I want to believe that his words will be wedded with his actions, that going forward, that is what he wants to be remembered for. And in order for that to happen, we cannot afford the luxury of pulling in the wrong direction. Is it Ngugi wa Thiong'o Barak in his book The River Between, quoting from Abraham Lincoln, who said that a house divided against itself cannot stand. Kenya will only stand. It came from Jesus Christ to Abraham Lincoln and then Ngugi wa Thiong'o in The River Between.
And now to you.
And now to me. And now to us.
Yes.
So my view is that this is the occasion. And President Kenyatta and Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga are big enough to say we represent significant constituencies and that we want the best for this country, not only for our legacies, but for posterity. And that is all that one is urging. And one would have expected, for example, that right now it would be 52% saying what I'm saying. And even if they don't say it, I'm quite certain from what I read yesterday and listened to that that is the right direction to take. And I know that Barak here, who agrees with me on many things,
or rather with whom you agree,
whichever direction you take it from,
yes,
knows that all those historical issues will be given their place and given the treatment that they deserve.
Yes.
But we should not be prisoners of the past. It is important that we remember history so that we don't repeat the same mistakes, but that we use the experience to inform the future, which everybody desires to be rosy and beautiful and good.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, let's take a quick break, come back and talk about what do the next 5 years hold for this country. Are we going to take off like we keep saying we're on the runway waiting to take off? Are we going to ever take off? Have we been cleared for takeoff? Is this the moment? Will President Kenyatta have the legacy that he really is looking to have? Will he get that? Or will it be business as usual, demonstrations every other day, every other month? Will it be like that? Will it be a tough time for the man?
We must remove the tailwind, we must remove the headwinds and have the tailwinds. Hence my negotiate. Is John F. Kennedy who said, you should not negotiate out of fear, but you should not fear to negotiate.
What a quote. Monica, have the numbers changed? Artur, what is the number? It's still 4852? All right, keep them coming. We're asking the question, should President Kenyatta reach out to the opposition? SMS number 22422. Tweet us at Koinange Jeff, at Barak M. Yes, indeed, this conversation is smoking hot. And we're going to have plenty more of it after the break. JKL takes a break. We'll be back.